And good afternoon, ladies and gents. I'm the Mohawk, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Peter Yeoh from hungryonion.org. And I'm actually genuinely excited, because I have the Nasi Lemak lobster, which I've been thinking about eating all week. You know, because Viva Victoria only does it on the weekends, right? You know, doesn't have it Monday to Friday, only on Saturday and Sundays. You had to pre-order it, so I have my Nasi Lemak lobster. But most importantly, though, another reason why I'm excited is because before the stream, me and Peter, we were talking about some of the things that we want to discuss, and he has, oh my God, this wealth of knowledge when it comes to Nasi Lemak. And I'm just like, oh, I have to ask some of these questions. But Peter, I'm gonna give you the floor so you can talk about yourself, about the Hungry Onion.
Thank you, Mo. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I think most of us on weekend we wanted to go out and hunt for food, but now with the MCO and the inability to dine outside, we can only do takeouts. So we thought we'll have this session. I'm Peter Yeoh. I'm actually one of the moderators of Hungry Onion, which is a food-based site on the internet. It's based in San Francisco, but Hungry Onion does food reviews all over the world. I'm the administrator for Asia Pacific. I'm also the administrator for a Facebook group called Malaysian Food Whisperers, which is actually an offshoot of Singapore Food Whisperers. It started off, I think, about 10 years ago because Singapore Food Whisperers wanted to advise Singaporeans to come to Malaysia where to eat. And then the founder, Sandra Galliston, asked me, would you like to be the administrator? We're in KL. So those are basically the two areas that's food-based that I'm quite actively involved.
We wanted to do more of food live streams, and we had the idea of doing sort of let's have a lunch live stream where we're actually eating lunch, talking about food, talking about Penang, talking about everything. There was only one person that I could think of, and that was you. And then Tina from Viva Victoria was like, I'll give the both of you guys Nasi Lemak. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I'm actually very thankful to everybody that put this live stream together. There was a lot of behind the scenes that came about and stuff like that. Also at the same time, I wanted to highlight this this question by Christopher Jacob Lim, who said, hello Mohawk and Bob Peter Yeoh from wintry weather of NSW Australia. Hello Christopher. John McCaskey also says, we're looking pretty good. Thank you so much. And Gordon Hart says, the lobster Nasi Lemak was so good, we just finished it. Me and Peter, we're just about to dig into the Nasi Lemak lobster. So, yeah. And also, before we get to this next topic, I want to let everybody know that we do have a QR code at the top of this page. We have Discord where you can ask me or Peter anything. So at any point, if you want to come in and ask us through your microphone or anything, you can actually join the link in the chat or scan the QR code. So Peter, what is the origin of Nasi Lemak?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting because Nasi Lemak is, in the old days, is regarded as a poor man's food. Of course, nowadays, the prices you're going to pay. So, yeah, it was actually the first person who actually recorded that as a poor man's food in quotes. It's actually an English guy, Sir Richard Olaf Winstead. In 1909, he wrote a book called Life and Customs, The Circumstances of Malay Life.
Oh,
and
wow.
If you look at the extract in there, he never used the word Nasi Lemak. But you can pick up the words that says, this person boiled rice in coconut milk instead of water. And then he says, the maritime Malay uses sea fish with a squeeze of lime juice on the stinking condiments, which is famous from Bangkok to Burma, so repellent to the uninitiated, but so indispensable to the connoisseur, which is the belacan. So
wow.
He's talking about
that sounds exactly like Nasi Lemak, without a doubt. Unless Nasi Lemak, there's another dish with the exact same ingredients.
Yes. Well, that's the English publication, right? That talked about in 1909. But of course, we know Nasi Lemak must have stretched back hundreds of years. But of course, we know Nasi Lemak must have stretched back hundreds of years. It's a Malay dish because when you find Nasi Lemak, it's from eastern Sumatra all the way down the Straits of Malacca and to the Riau Islands in the south, the Johor and all that. I've had similar, the rice with coconut milk in Java, but they call it nasi uduk. Then they use lemongrass there, and they use onions and they use ginger, Whereas here it's coconut milk with rice, and we use pandan leaf for the aroma and all that. One thing's for sure that I can say is that if we want to define Nasi Lemak as coconut milk rice with sambal, there's a holy trinity, they call it the santan, the rice, and the sambal. Then Nasi Lemak could not possibly exist before the arrival of the Portuguese, because the Portuguese are the ones who introduced chili pepper from South America, first to India and then to Southeast Asia. The Portuguese, I think the time when they first arrived in India, Vasco da Gama was 1498. Lopez de Sequeira, the first Portuguese arrived in Malacca, was 1509, which is about just roughly 11 years later. Yeah. There's a high possibility that the Portuguese were the one who brought the chilies over, rather than you think they introduced to India, then the Indian Muslim merchants who came to Malacca to do trading will bring it with them. It's just the timing was very short,
Yeah.
Of course, the first place in India that the Portuguese arrived in was Calicut. Calicut is in the Malabar coast. And the Malabaris are the main people who came to Malacca and even settled in Malaya in the old days. Because they are the Malayali people. And a lot of, you notice the Malay dishes are quite similar to the Keralan food. Like our ayam masak roast, similar to their chicken. And the Kerala people use santan. They use coconut milk, which people in Tamil Nadu hardly use. Tamil Nadu use asam, they use tamarind. So we can safely say that, well, if Nasi Lemak come with sambal and all that, you'll be after the Portuguese came, the same civilization that started in Malacca. Of course, was spread all over. And then the last sultan of Malacca had two sons, right? Alauddin Shah, and one of them was invited by the people in Perak in northern Malaya at that time. He started the Sultanate of Perak. The other son remained in Johor, and he started the Sultanate of Johor. So all along, there's this close link of the Malay culture throughout the peninsula. And the food culture will be the same. Food is one of the things that define a people and their culture, right? Besides their practices and all that. So
you know what's funny? Like I was reading up on just history in general, and I was actually quite surprised at how much colonialism influences a lot of things. But a lot of the world. International history was developed by these people who decided to go on ships, go to different lands, and make colonies. Everybody from the British to the Dutch to the Portuguese.
Correct.
That's one of the reasons why we have very similar cultures globally. And there were a couple of theories about why that was. The theory was that, and it had to do with the pandemic, because like the Black Plague killed a lot of people in Europe. That when it was gone and everybody was cured and life went back to normal, people had this wider appetite for risk, because going on a ship and sailing and potentially dying was equal to staying at home and potentially catching a disease and dying. So people took more risks, and there was a surge in finding new lands. And this was the beginning of colonialism. These were the people who was just like, oh, this is interesting. I met some natives. Oh, look, they have this powdery substance. Oh, it's spicy. That's basically world history right there.
It's quite interesting when you touch on colonialism. I've always felt colonialism is probably the earliest form of globalization. Western countries' colonialism sometimes takes the form of armed aggression. I want to do trade with you, but if you don't want, I'm going to send my warships and take over your place, Because when you look at China, when the Portuguese forcibly took over Malacca, the Chinese were very upset because Malacca is their vassal state. But then you're thinking, since when did China ever take over Malacca? They never did. But the thing is that they have this, what they call, it's almost like an economic kind of colonialism, right?
Yeah.
It's like you do trade with me. In return, I protect you, you know? Which is probably what China is trying to do today, you know? Because I was thinking when I was reading history last time, like, why is China so upset about Malacca being taken over by the Portuguese? Because what is it to them? You know, they never have advisors or you know, someone, an administrator, you know, who's based in Malacca, never. So why are they so upset? So could be China's already, you know, have some form of early Ming Dynasty version of globalization, trade, you know, global trade going on at that time. In Singapore, Nasi Lemak, you can see that there's a lot of external or international influence. In Malaysia, we may have rendang or ayam goreng nowadays. As in Singapore, they'll have like even the luncheon meat. The Chinese one is the non-halal. They also have sausages. You go to Geylang Serai, they got chicken nuggets. You know, chicken nugget with the Nasi Lemak. You choose whatever you want that you put in. You know, you can see that it is becoming more and more international in that sense. But the difference I find is Nasi Lemak in Singapore, the sambal is usually more sweet and not so spicy as at least the KL and Penang versions. I have my favorite Nasi Lemak places in Singapore, and then I realized that their rice is also a bit more lemak. So these are the Malay Nasi Lemak. When I moved from Singapore to KL in 2011, and the first thing I realized is the Malay Nasi Lemak in KL. Wow, pedas! Then my local colleagues say, because we got a lot of influence from Perak and also the Minang people in Negeri Sembilan. Yeah, it's amazing. The Minang introduced like really spicy food, and then they influenced a lot of the Selangor diet, you know. A few years ago, there was this program called Food Wars Asia, right, where they bring the top two of each food category, and then they do a head-on competition between them. Nasi Lemak, they choose Nasi Lemak Tanglin and Village Park Nasi Lemak, and they do a cook-off. The interesting thing is because Nasi Lemak Tanglin has a spicier sambal compared to Village Park Nasi Lemak. Because Village Park Nasi Lemak, the owner, Muhammad Shamil Go Abdullah, is actually a Chinese who's a Muslim convert. He's from Singapore. So, but his Village Park Nasi Lemak in KL is like the most popular one, because you know every prime minister has been there. Anyway, in the head-on competition, I think Nasi Lemak Tanglin won because they had 3 judges. And I think the judges actually said the one from Village Park is sweet, whereas the one from Tanglin is more authentic because it's spicy. And then one of them who said that was Isadora Chai, celebrity chef in KL. I like Village Park Nasi Lemak, but Nasi Lemak Tanglin, founded in 1948. I would recommend people go and try it. Now it's the granddaughter. The granddaughter, I think she's Fasaitul Ahmad Hassan. She took over from the father. Father is Zainal Abidin. This Zainal Abidin Hassan is a son of Suryati Jawimura. Yeah, the one that founded it.
You mentioned that Nasi Lemak is a very Malay origin. Because I said it was Malaysian, but you're like, oh, actually, it's not just Malaysian. It's very Malay origin.
Yes.
So, and Penang, the demographic tends to be more skewed towards the Chinese populace. But in terms of Nasi Lemak, does it still have the quality?
Look at Penang at the beginning. But the time when in 1786, when the British was interested and Francis Slade came, there was a small Malay community there. But the Malay community there are many Kedahans. So Penang traditionally has always been very influenced by Kedah. And 1820s, you remember, the Kedah was being attacked by Siam. Anyone opposing Siam, they killed. A lot of Kedah Malays, they lost their lives because they were fighting for independence from the Siamese. At that time, the Kedah Malay all swarmed into the refugee, like political refugee. They swarmed into Penang. In Penang, I think between 1821 and 1828, 60 to 70% of Penang's population are Malay, like Kedah Malay. Because when they come to Penang, the Siamese king did not come in, because they said if you come in, you are going to face off with the British.
Oh my God!
They regard Penang as the British in a way protectorate.
And I've noticed something. Kedah Malay is similar but not the same.
Yes, in a way it evolved, you know. But even the Penang Hokkien also had an early beginning in 1820. Also got it from Kedah Malay. So like sambal, the Kedah Malay called sambai. Penang also become sambai. Biso, they call bisui. So the Chinese will say bisui. Penang Hokkien they have bisui, sambai. You know, it's actually from Kedah Malay.
Wow. Wow. So that is the origins of sambai.
And my own family, my great-grandfather moved to Penang in 1838 from Asahan. Asahan is like a district near Aceh. Aceh has had Hokkien merchants for centuries. So we are the peranakan, you know. So when he came to Penang, I think Penang has about 20,000 population, of which 60% are Kedah Malays, you know. So that time there were already Hokkien merchants from Aceh, and there are other Hokkien merchants from Kedah. And then there were also the Babas from Malacca. At that time, the Baba from Malacca, who are working for the British, like almost like a civil servant or what, or those who are trading with them, they realized that if they stay on in Malacca, then there's no more trade for them because the British already come to Penang, right?
Oh!
So during that time, a lot of them actually moved to Penang. Of course, by the time the British put in more importance to Singapore, then a lot of Malaccan go to Singapore instead of coming to Penang.
I've always wondered, because when you go to Malacca and then you research the history, it was a trading port. It was the trading port at one point.
It was the trading port.
And then there was a ship to Penang, and I never could find an article or talk to anyone who knew. Thank you, Peter. You helped me fill in the blanks. Now I know. Oh, it's the British.
Because maybe also Francis Lai is doing some canvassing.
Right.
He wants to make sure that Penang become the trading post instead of Malacca. But anyway, Malacca already was suffering from neglect. Because firstly, when the Portuguese took over Malacca, the Chinese traders start pulling out. They like trading with the Malacca sultanates. And when the Portuguese came, spoiled the whole balance of trade. You know, when it was under Malacca sultanate, everyone was happy. They were all trading with each other and all that. But when the Portuguese came, then but subsequently, because of discontentment, then the Dutch managed to tap on that. So the Dutch would get the alliance with the Malay sultanates and the Javanese, and then that's how they took over Malacca. But when they took over Malacca, they're more interested in Batavia, which is modern-day Jakarta. So that's why they pull out a lot of resources from Malacca to build up Batavia at that time.
Ayo.
So by the time the British came, and then of course the British that time was also holding on to some ports in Java. The British and the Dutch are allies, right? In Europe, where they're fighting against the Catholic alliance, the Spanish, and Portuguese. So the British and Dutch, they get along very well. They say, okay, why don't we make it, Malaya is my sphere of influence, the British one. You just stick on in Java. So the Dutch will stay on in the Dutch East Indies, which is modern-day Indonesia.
I'm still amazed because I didn't know all of this, and I wish Tiger was here as well. He was in the chat saying yummy yummy. Sorry he couldn't join. But this is one of those beautiful conversations I love ever since me and the collective of the group that is Penang Hidden Gems started doing this live stream. It's like I literally am learning so much, and the fact that you had this international politics going on between two colonialistic forces, the Dutch and the British, and the Dutch and the Portuguese, and all of that had spillover effects to Singapore and Penang. In a way, you could say we could thank the British, and we could, as a state, we could thank the Portuguese. You know, they did such a bad job. It's just like, come to Penang. And these were your words. Just say food. It's something like the culture of the people as well. The beautiful part about this conversation is that we were talking about Nasi Lemak, but inside Nasi Lemak, it seems that the ingredients are like chapters in history. The sambal is from the Portuguese, and then it opens up this whole chapter of colonialism, Malacca, and migration. And then there's the level of spiciness in the sambal also shows the influence of the Malays who were in Kedah, running away from the Siamese, starting their own. Oh my God! It's all in the food. I'm getting mind blown. This is a genuine reaction. I'm not faking any of this. I'm getting mind blown that inside this dish is many layers of history.
You look at Malaysia. Northeast Malaysia, Kelantan, Terengganu, they don't go for Nasi Lemak. They have their own Nasi Dagang. Nasi Dagang is not exactly Nasi Lemak because they mix the pulut with the rice. And then they add the halba, they add the onions, they add the ginger inside the nasi dagang, you know?
Yeah.
And if they don't have nasi dagang, then they have nasi belau, which is just white rice. So the Kelantanese, Terengganu people, they don't go for nasi lemak. They also don't like spicy food. The Kelantanese, you notice the food is not spicy.
Yeah.
And their food is sweet. It's very sweet because the Kelantanese descended from the Champa people, the Champa kingdom, the Cambodia one.
Oh my God.
So they are from actually almost a different culture whatsoever.
Oh my God. Okay.
How about nasi lemak? Yeah, you don't go to the east of Malaysia. You talk about the west coast of Malaysia. That's it.
Wow. So they were influenced by the Cambodians, hence why they love more sweet than spicy or
Very
savory
sweet.
in their... Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. You go to Vietnam, like when I go to Ho Chi Minh City, then sometimes you go about beef noodles. Say, how come this is sweeter than other beef noodles? Then they say, this guy from Cambodia. You know, Cambodian people even worse, even sweeter. Kelantan Budu is a prahok. You go to Siem Reap or Phnom Penh, they got prahok. Prahok is a Budu. So as Budu, you don't get any other part of Malaysia, right? It's only Kelantan, the Kelantan will influence the Terengganu people, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
But you didn't show people peanuts, nasi lemak, I mean, on the plate here.
Yeah. Oh my God, you put it on a nice plate. For me, I literally still have the box. And...
But you can see even in Penang how our nasi lemak has evolved. Like you notice, in the old days, nasi lemak is just sambal. Don't know sambal, maybe some ikan bilis, maybe some the groundnuts, the kacang, kacang goreng. Nowadays, sambal sotong. The sotong not cheap. Then limpa lah, you know, the rendang lah. I remember growing up years when we are young. Beef rendang we only see during Hari Raya, right? Some people they cook it once a year, you know, they don't have it every day, you know. But nowadays you can see that people must have their rendang, you know, rendang. And then now from rendang daging, you got rendang ayam. And so food keeps evolving.
Agree.
Where's your favorite nasi lemak spot in Penang? I mean, besides Viva Victoria.
Nasi lemak is based on the adventure of the morning. So sometimes me and my wife, we would go to the market and then it would always be an unnamed stall, and there's a pachi or a machi, and that's part. And for me, that's part of the mystique of nasi lemak. So I would buy from them, and it's usually the ones that are on the. This is pre-pandemic, of course. The ones on the roadside, and for me, I don't know if it's a right way to gauge. The less fancy the booth, the more sedap the nasi lemak. Like if it doesn't even if it doesn't have a sign or a QR code or a Facebook page, it's for some reason the most sedap nasi lemak I've tried.
Next time when you go to Pulau Tikus, you can try the Penang Nyonya style nasi lemak with the Jinho coffee shop. Yeah, now it's run by the son. The grandma started it, and in the 70s or 80s, the father, who's very, very sociable, was running it, Johnny. But after the father passed away, the son took over. The son has a cap on. He doesn't like to talk to people, but the taste of his nasi lemak is a typical Penang Nyonya one, which is a very, very lemak rice, more lemak than most other rice. And then they have the prawn and the fish, which has been marinated in asam, and then they fry. So jadi hitam lah, like blackened shrimp and blackened fish, but it's got a sourish tinge. And then they have the sambal belacan, which is very spicy, and then the cucumbers and hard-boiled. That's it. Because the Penang Nyonya nasi lemak is just nasi lemak with the sambal belacan and the asam fish, asam prawn. So you should try that one. It's a bit different. I also reviewed Malay nasi lemak. My favorite is the one at Astaka Taman Sadon. Ironically, the family that runs the Warisan Bonda are Bachok Kelantan. So they're actually cooking nasi lemak in Penang. I don't know why. Maybe they say Penang tak boleh jual nasi dagang. So nasi lemak lah. The Warisan Bonda actually is the grandmother, Zubaida Haji Hassan. Now her grandchildren are the one running the store number 5. Go Astaka Taman Sadon, store number 5. That's my favorite place. And it will be like the sort you look for. It's quite simple. It's either the gulai ayam or the daging rendang and all that, and that's it. there's so many stalls selling Nasi Lemak in Astaka. Some will have limpa lah, paru lah, all that lah. That's the simple. Yeah. Some people go for Nasi Lemak bungkus, right, in Penang, the like Sri Well, the Ali Nasi Lemak. But I find that sambal getting hotter and hotter and hotter. 2 years ago, one of my friends, Suzanne Zhang, she's the food and wine editor for South China Morning Post in Hong Kong, and she was in Penang. Yeah, so I was bring her around. On her last day before she go to airport, she went to Sri Well and she took 4 packets of Ali Nasi Lemak. And I was saying, is it going to be too spicy for her lah? But she said that when she get to the airport in Bandar Lepas at the lounge, airline lounge, she already ate 2 packets. She loved it. It's the best Nasi Lemak she ever had. Yeah. I mean, she's been the editor for 20 over years in Hong Kong. They do have some places in Hong Kong that supposedly sell Malaysian food lah. Never, she said, has she had Nasi Lemak that good as Ali. I was thinking,
wow.
Oh my God. For me, it's so spicy. For her, it's like, wow. This is one of the places she want to return to when she comes back to Penang.
that is saying a lot. Somebody of that caliber who's saying that is to the point where she finished 2 before going on a flight.
And no preconceptions. You never heard about, it's good or it's bad. It's just body,
Yeah. I have a very weird, I guess you can say, experience of Malaysian culture, because although I am Malay, but the thing is, I experienced it in a third culture kid kind of way. Growing up in the States, things like rendang and nasi lemak, right? They were expensive to make. One small packet of santan, right? Would cost anywhere between 80 to 110 ringgit. So that's why whenever we had nasi lemak or rendang, right? Like that's what people hear. Like they're like, oh, I love French cooking, I love pizza and stuff. I'm just like, for me, they're poor man's food. So for me growing up, Malaysian food, Malaysian curry, authentic Malaysian curry, not with cream, with santan. Rendang, durians. These were the bourgeois exotic foods for me. They were the once a year, only during Raya or only during somebody's marriage ceremony. Then you can also So that's why for me, when people ask, do I ever want to move back to the States, I'm like, no. So imagine you're a person who loves I don't know, creme brulee and foie gras, right? When you go to Paris, you wouldn't want to leave. You're just like, this is heaven. And for me, that's my experience in Malaysia, in Penang especially. Because nothing compared to where the good food's at. To me, this is makanan orang kaya right here. This is makanan orang kaya.
I'm the Penangite, that's 6th generation on my father's side. My mom's Kelantanese. In a way, our taste is influenced by her. The cooking, your maternal grandma's cooking, your mother's cooking. So for me, if you ask me, where's the best Malay food, I always think about Kelantanese food, sweeter and less spicy. But when it comes to Nasi Lemak, of course, you can't find it in Kelantan. And the Kelantan tastes are different. They don't like serai. Although Kelantan used to be under the Chinese, but when it comes to culinary culture, they are still very much more influenced by Cambodians. So if you cook, you masak laksa Kelantan or nasi kerabu or air pencit, you don't put serai. You put lemongrass, your customer all disappear,
Oh my God.
So interestingly, I think of all the Kelantanese dishes, like even nasi dagang and all that, you don't see serai, right? You don't see lemongrass in it.
No, you don't. And the thing is, I've never noticed until you pointed it out. Now I'm thinking back, it's actually, they do.
But their food is also evolving, so I won't be surprised one day someone is going to come and put serai inside nasi dagang and say, this is a modern nasi dagang Kelantan. Look at nasi lemak now in Malaysia. 30 years ago, do you envisage at McDonald's or KFC will have nasi lemak? Now you have Nasi Lemak at KFC, you have McDonald's, right?
I couldn't even envision Nasi Lemak on a airline flight, and then now that's like a common dish, you know? Actually, is there a reason why Nasi Lemak is always sold in the morning?
I'm guessing because Nasi Lemak is always seen as a breakfast dish. And because it's so rich, you know, it's santan, you need that for your energy and all that. That if you continue to sell Nasi Lemak after breakfast, I mean, you say for lunch or for dinner, some people may not think that, hey, I just had it for breakfast. Why are you selling a breakfast dish for lunch or for dinner? You know, I mean, I'm just guessing. But surprisingly, my favorite place for Nasi Lemak in KL, for Madam Kwan. Madam Kwan, who's that time she runs Sakura, and I always have a Nasi Lemak for dinner. Sakura last time was in Jalan Indi. A bit of the history of Madam Kwan. Madam Kwan, when she started in the 1950s, she actually had Sakura Beauty Salon.
Oh my!
But she also served food to her customers sometimes, you know, because she cooked something that hey, you have to try. And then her customers say, hey, you're so clever at cooking, and you know, cooking is actually more profitable. You know, they gave some example of some dishes you can sell for how much. You do my hair, 1 hour, you earn how much. So in 1977, she turned it into a restaurant, Sakura Cafe. And she started selling Nasi Lemak for lunch and dinner because she doesn't open so early. To go home for breakfast. So I tried that time, was so good, so very lemak. And then she served it with the chicken curry, then with the egg and all that. She also have another dish called Nasi Bojari, but Nasi Bojari is a bit like our nasi after the tujuh benua, you know, the very colourful.
Yeah.
That one, she actually said she copied from her friend, Madam Chin. In Singapore. She went to Singapore, her friend served her there, she liked it, but she don't know the recipe, so she just came out with a dish that looked like what her friend served her.
God!
And from her memory, how she think it tastes like. So that's how Nasi Bojari came about. I got a cookbook and biography of Madam Kwan that they published a few years ago. It talked about how in the late 90s, during the Asian economic crisis, she got some investors in, but in a way they cheated her. They became her investor. Then they said, okay, you can stay on as our kitchen consultant for 1 year. But after that, we got all her recipes, they kicked her out.
Oh my God.
And she was quite depressed for a while until her son, Rudy Fu is her youngest son. 2009, he gave her money to open Madam Kwan in Bangsa. And Madam Kwan has exactly the same kind of menu as Sakura.
Oh my, wow.
So you can see, in a way, in 2009 she started, and now Madam Kwan is so big, they're having the KLCC and all that. Whereas Sakura, I think it closed down in 2018 or 2017.
Yeah, actually, I remember both Sakura and Madam Kwan's as well. But I didn't know there was like all this drama going on, because any drama like that in Penang when it comes to Nasi Lemak?
I mean, we have our own food families and their own dramas as well. But not the Nasi Lemak ones.
So there's no like Nasi Lemak dynasties.
Yeah, no. I don't think there's, except for the Jinho, I told you, the Isabel and grandma, then the father.
Yeah.
The father, Johnny, I can't remember his surname. He was very popular. He was so cheeky. He was like everyone in Politico's market knows him because that's Johnny from Jinho. He like to sembang lah, chit-chat. Then the son totally the other extreme. The son don't even look at your face. So he just there with the cat that he just serve you. But the food is the same. People say the standard go down lah, different lah. No, it's the same.
Maybe it's a change in storyline. You know, people are so used to seeing the because again, for me, that's part of the love of local food, you know, it's the story, you know, and I get what it feels like, because sometimes maybe somebody retires or the shop closes down, you know, it may be the same ingredient, but it, you know, you don't the branding is not there. So you have this, I don't know, I probably would have to research the psychology behind it, but there is an effect on the taste. You're just like, it's good, it hits all that, but it doesn't have the full journey attached along to it. So
and then it's a bit harder for me to name even say top 10 Nasi Lemak. When you talk about Muslim food culture, it's very much dominated by the mamak food. So you always end up with nasi kandar, and nasi kandar is also breakfast food, right?
Yeah.
So you're more likely to have a top 10 nasi kandar, places that or like Agao Road, Roti Canai, which is famous for their daging, right? The gulai daging, So people go there for the Roti Canai with the beef curry.
Yeah.
So Penang has our own food culture, very much influenced by the Indian Muslim. Look for the top 10 in KL. I suspect that when I did it, it was before Hungry Onion. I probably did it in Chow Hao. 15 years ago, I started writing about food in Chow Hao, which is another similar food site. But then Jim left, the guy who started Chow Hao, he sold it to CBS Fox in 2015. And
Wait,
CBS
he sold it to Fox?
It so commercial. Yes.
What?
Yeah. So that's why we move on to Hungry Onion, because CBS Fox make it so commercialized, and a lot of ads will jump out on you. Okay, my top 10 Nasi Lemak that time when I put a Chow Hao, Jah Corner, which is Jalan Kerja Air Lama in Ampang. Mak Jah is from Perak, so her Nasi Lemak has a very good Perak style rendang.
Is it spicy? Because remember we said people from Perak, they like spicy versions of the Nasi Lemak, right?
And their own style of cooking as well. So Perak rendang, you can see it's very different from the rendang you get in, say, for example, Negeri Sembilan.
Yeah.
It's a different recipe. Then there's a Village Park, Nasi Lemak Suri, which is in Jalan 223 PJ. RA Nasi Lemak. RA, I think it's because it's on Jalan Raja Abdullah in Kampung Baru. This is also about 30 years old. And theirs is like they kukus. They steam the Nasi Lemak in wooden barrel.
Wow.
Then, but they're famous for their gulai paru with the cow's lung curry. And it's by this Haji Gedek. But very hard to because it's in Kampung Baru and they sell out by 9 in the morning. There's a Warung Rindu Pak Ya. Warung Rindu Pak Ya is in Jalan Pantai Dalam. Very popular, and it is the type of Nasi Lemak where you wrap in the banana leaf. And inside got only 2 ingredients. One is chicken, and then one is burung puyuh, the quail. Fried quail. You either choose the quail or the chicken, and then with the fried egg and the sambal. That's it. Then there's Nasi Lemak Pak Ayub, which is in Shah Alam. That one also, they say the sambal takes 6 hours to cook. A bit like the Nasi Lemak Antarabangsa in Kampung Melayu, also 6 hours to cook their sambal. That's the number 10 on my list. And Nasi Lemak Antarabangsa didn't make to my top 10 at the time because I think it was a bit too commercialized at the time.
I love your thought process. And the fact that you intimately know every one of these establishments, that I can tell that you're the type of person that gets really involved in the food, the preparation, the people behind it, the stores, the history, which makes the journey ever more interesting. We're down to the 1 hour and 15-minute mark. So in fact, I have a feeling that if we continue, we can do this for like 2-3 hours. Just the amount of wealth of information that you have, Peter, is just amazing. So, but I'm gonna have to wrap it up, and I wanted to say thank you so much. I've learned so much, and I felt like in this 1 hour, I've also grown to appreciate Nasi Lemak. Looking at Nasi Lemak is not the same for me now. I see 100 years or 2 or more worth of history just in the rice, the sambal, and everything into it, and also the history behind the modern touches to it, like Viva Victoria's lobster or putting it in a casket. Was it Waro?
Barrel.
Barrel. Sorry, barrel. Yes. Culture is evolving, and so is food. I don't think you can separate the two apart.
It's the same with our Nyonya culture. Our Nyonya culture always talk about our food. Besides our language and the way they dress, our culture, the arts like Tondang Sayang. Nyonya food is always there. It's one of the pillar of our culture. And I think similarly, even in Malay culture, besides religion and language and culture, you also have the food.
That's so true.
It's one of the items that will define us.
The beautiful part is, I don't know if you realize it, Peter, like You know, just like how Tiger, he's a walking encyclopedia of.
Oh yes, he is. Yeah,
but
he's amazing.
you are very similar. You in every right. You're a hidden gem of Penang as well, because I think within your brain right now, this is great wealth of food culture that I didn't even know of. Learning so much, and there's so many things I did not know. I've Googled so many things on Nasi Lemak, and they're all very the usual superficial stuff. You know, recipes and just like it's from Malaysian origins, blah blah blah. But you weaved it into like a human narrative, colonialism to the resistance uprising against the Siamese and the exodus into Penang and Singapore. You brought the bigger picture.
Yeah, because I feel that if you put in more stories behind a certain food, it gives it a more interesting context than just a plate of food, you know, like where it comes from, how, you know, what goes into its preparation and all that. Try and go inside Hungry Onion or even Penang Heritage Food, you know, by Dr. Ong Jin Tiong on Facebook, where I also contributed a lot on the food places in Penang, the history, who started it. The other Facebook group you can try and go inside is Malaysian Food Whisperers.
So thank you, Peter. I really appreciate your time. This has been a great honor, and I'm glad to be having lunch with you right now. I don't know, would you be interested to do more in the future?
Of course, yeah. Just call me.
Oh, for sure. We'll keep in touch. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Keep safe.
All right.
Okay,
and
bye.
Keep safe and bye-bye.